P4 True Stories of Hospital Horror. The monitors beeped after he was gone in Chicago. Story 1. Submitted by Claire M. from Chicago, Illinois. I used to work the night shift at St. Anthony's Medical Center on the South Side, an older hospital with flickering fluorescence and that permanent smell of antiseptic and coffee. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I liked the rhythm of nights. The hallways were quieter, the lights dimmer, the city outside wrapped in a sort of muffled hum. I was a respiratory therapist, which meant I floated between floors checking vents, CPAPs, and the occasional post-op patient who was struggling to breathe. You get used to a lot of odd noises in a hospital. Alarms, groans, the shuffle of nurses' shoes, that distant hiss of oxygen through plastic lines. After a few years, it all just blends into white noise, except for that one night. It was early November, cold enough that patients came in coughing and wheezing from the air. I was called to room 417. A man named Harold Deacon, late 50s, massive stroke. He'd been in the ICU for 2 days, mostly unresponsive. When I got there, his nurse, Melinda, was already charting. She looked tired but calm. "We're keeping him comfortable," she said. "Vitals are stable for now." Stable didn't mean hopeful. His wife had gone home a few hours earlier after sitting by the bed all day. I adjusted his BiPAP mask, checked the pressure, then left. Nothing unusual. Around 2:30 a.m., the code blue went out. Room 417. By the time I got there, Harold was already gone. The monitors had flatlined, the ventilator was off, and Melinda stood beside the bed, hands clasped like she was praying. The doctor called the time, 2:41 a.m. We did the usual, turned off the machines, unhooked the IVs, and covered the body. That should have been the end of it. But 20 minutes later, as I passed by with a cart, I heard it, the monitor in 417 beeping again. Not the flatline tone, but the steady blip, blip, blip of a heartbeat. I froze. I wasn't the only one. Melinda came running from the nurse's station, wide-eyed. "What the hell?" We went in together. The lights were low, and the body was still there, zipped up to the shoulders in the white shroud. But the monitor, it was lit up, showing a perfect waveform. Pulse, 72. Oxygen, 97%. The lines danced like someone alive was lying there. Melinda muttered, "Maybe the sensor's still picking up static." I pulled back the shroud. His chest wasn't moving. No heartbeat, no breath. I disconnected every cable one by one, and the monitor still beeped, numbers steady as ever. Then, and I swear to this, Harold's right hand twitched, just the fingers curling slightly like he was trying to grab something. Melinda gasped and stumbled backward. I thought maybe it was a post-mortem spasm, but his eyelids fluttered open for a split second. The pupils were fixed, cloudy, but his mouth moved. Like he was forming words. It only lasted a second. Then everything went still again. The monitor flatlined once more. We stood there for a long time, neither of us saying a word. Eventually, Melinda whispered, "Let's just document equipment malfunction." And we did. The machine was checked the next day. Nothing wrong with it. Perfectly calibrated. A week later, Harold's wife came back to drop off some paperwork. She stopped by the nurse's station and asked if anyone had heard anything strange after he passed. "I had a dream," she said. Harold was lying in bed, holding out his hand to me. He said, "Don't let them turn off the light yet." Melinda turned pale. The next night, room 417's monitor beeped again. The bed was empty that time, no patient assigned, no power to the sensors. Just that slow, steady rhythm echoing through the hall, like a pulse that refused to stop. Maintenance replaced the entire setup the next morning. They even switched out the wall power. But a few weeks later, a new patient was admitted to 417, an elderly woman, pneumonia. I came in to adjust her oxygen, and she asked me, "Who's the man that stands by the door at night? He keeps staring at the monitor." I said there was no one there. She smiled faintly. He said his name was Harold. That was my last shift in the ICU. I transferred to pediatrics where the noises are different, softer, somehow lighter. But even now, years later, whenever I hear the steady beeping of a heart monitor, I wait for it to stop, and part of me still expects it not to. Story 2, submitted by Marcus L. from Evanston, Illinois. I worked as a janitor at Mercy General for almost 10 years. I wasn't supposed to see much, just clean, empty rooms, mop the halls, and take out trash before sunrise. But hospitals have a way of showing you more than you want to see, especially after midnight. The thing about hospitals is, they don't really sleep. Even when it's quiet, there's a pulse, a rhythm in the machines, the distant buzz of pagers, the sigh of air conditioning that never stops. You start to feel like the building itself is alive, breathing through all those wires and vents. My route every night was the lower floor, radiology, storage, and the east hallway that led to what everyone called the old wing. That part was shut down years ago after a renovation, but somehow they never sealed it properly. The doors were locked, yeah, but the lights still worked inside. Sometimes you'd catch a flicker of something beyond the glass. One night around 3 a.m., I was emptying the trash by radiology when I heard it, the faint, rhythmic sound of a heart monitor. Just the one, beeping steady through the silence. I followed the sound down the hall. All the rooms were dark, except one at the very end, room B12. I remember that number because I never cleaned in there. It was in the closed section, behind a door marked authorized personnel only. The door was propped open with a folded towel. The light inside flickered and the smell hit me. That sharp metallic scent of disinfectant mixed with something else. Something stale. There was a single bed in the middle of the room, sheets tucked, monitor lit up green. The machine was showing a perfect rhythm, 78 BPM. But the bed was empty. I stood there listening, every nerve in my body telling me to leave. Then the monitor began to slow. Beep, beep, beep. And a voice, low and raspy, whispered from behind me, "Don't touch it." I spun around, but no one was there. The monitor flatlined, a long, piercing tone that made my ears ring. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut before I reached it. I pounded on it, shouting, thinking maybe a nurse had pulled a prank. But the air felt wrong, too still, too heavy. Then the monitor started again, showing a heart rate that wasn't mine. 42, 39, 35. It was slowing down, and with each drop, I could feel my own heartbeat sinking with it. When it hit 20, my vision tunneled. The room dimmed around the edges, like someone was pulling the light away. I remember gasping for air, the world tilting, my chest tight, until a sharp click sounded and the monitor shut off completely. The door opened, just like that. I stumbled out, drenched in sweat, my pulse hammering so fast I thought I might pass out. When I looked back, the room was dark, completely dark. I reported it the next morning. Security checked the old wing. No signs of power running to any of the machines. The outlets weren't even active. That room, they said, hadn't had electricity since 2012. I asked one of the older nurses about it later. She went pale and said, "B12 used to be the Rhesus Bay. We lost a lot of patients there before they closed it off. One in particular, an old man they kept reviving over and over until he just didn't stay down." They said after that, the monitors in that wing would sometimes turn on by themselves, showing heartbeats that matched whoever entered the room. I quit that job 3 weeks later. Now, sometimes at night when I lie awake, I can hear it again, faint and steady, just beneath the hum of my apartment's heater. That soft, mechanical beep, 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 like something, somewhere, is still waiting for my heart to slow down. Story 3, submitted by Julia H. from Naperville, Illinois. My mother spent the last 3 months of her life at St. Mary's Rehabilitation Center just outside Chicago. It was one of those quiet places tucked between office parks and strip malls, all neutral paint and laminated furniture, a place where people were meant to rest comfortably. But I was there almost every evening, so I knew better. The walls had a heaviness to them. You could feel it if you stayed past visiting hours. Mom had lung cancer. The staff did what they could, but she was fading, sleeping most of the time. I used to sit beside her bed in room 212. reading out loud from her old mystery novels. The machines around her hummed and beeped, keeping rhythm with her shallow breaths. The first time I noticed something strange was about a week before she died. I was reading, half distracted, when I realized the monitor was beeping faster, her heart rate climbing from 78 to 102, though she hadn't moved. I leaned forward, touched her wrist. Her pulse felt normal, maybe even slower than before. Then I heard her whisper, not to me. "Stop standing there," she said softly, her eyelids fluttering. I froze. There was no one else in the room. "Who, Mom?" I asked. "The man by the door," she murmured, and then she drifted back into sleep. I turned. The door was open just a crack. The hallway beyond was empty, though I thought I saw a shadow shift, like someone had just stepped out of sight. I told myself it was a trick of the light. The next night, I asked her about it. She looked confused, didn't remember saying anything, but as the sun went down and the monitors glowed green in the dim light, she started watching that doorway again, eyes glassy, fixed. She said, "He's waiting for me, but not yet." The nurses said she was having end-of-life visions, common in hospice patients. I wanted to believe that, until the night she passed. It was a Thursday. I'd gone home early for once, exhausted, and got the call at 2:18 a.m. They told me she'd gone peacefully. But when I arrived at the hospital to collect her things, one of the nurses, a quiet guy named Ray, asked to speak to me privately. He said something odd had happened right after she died. They had turned off her monitors, drawn the curtain, and left for a few minutes to prepare the paperwork. When they came back, the monitor was on again. The heart rate was steady, 84 BPM, and the oxygen line, which had been disconnected, was hissing like it was under pressure. The machine beeped like someone alive was hooked up to it. Ray said it lasted for about 3 minutes before going dark again. They checked the connections, thinking maybe it was a power surge. But the system logs showed the monitor had been powered manually. When I asked him what he meant, he said, "Someone pressed the button." Later, when I was alone in her room, I noticed the faint outline of a shoe print by the window, small, clean, and slightly smeared across the linoleum, like someone had been standing there facing the bed. I asked about maintenance or housekeeping. Nobody had been assigned to that room since the code was called. I don't remember leaving the hospital that morning. I just remember driving through the gray dawn, her heart monitor sound still echoing in my ears, that steady electronic pulse that shouldn't have been there. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Ray again. He sounded shaken. "You won't believe this," he said. Room 222's monitor turned on again last night. No patient, no power, just started beeping. He paused before adding, and it wasn't the usual pattern. It beeped twice, then paused, like it was trying to get someone's attention. He said the pattern matched exactly what my mom's heart had done in her final hours. I didn't know what to say. I just hung up and sat there, the phone still in my hand, the sound of her heart monitor replaying in my mind like a memory I couldn't shut off. Now, when I pass St. Mary's on my way to work, I sometimes see the lights flicker in the second-floor window where her room was. And every once in a while, when I'm trying to fall asleep, I'll hear it again. That same rhythm, faint but insistent. 2 beeps. Pause. 2 beeps. Pause. Like she's still trying to tell me she's not alone in there. Story 4, submitted by Daniel R. from Chicago, Illinois. I was an EMT for 8 years before I left the field for good. I've seen people take their last breaths in alleys, bedrooms, and back seats, but it's the ones who almost make it, the ones whose heart stops after we hand them off, that stay with you. This happened in 2019, at the old Mercy Hospital before they closed it down. I was partnered with Jenna that night, a new medic still getting used to the rhythm of the city. Around 11:40 p.m., we got a call about a cardiac arrest at a downtown apartment, middle-aged male, unresponsive. By the time we got there, the man's wife was performing CPR on the floor. She was hysterical, crying, saying he'd just collapsed watching TV. We worked on him for 20 minutes in the rig. Shocks, compressions, epinephrine, the whole drill. We got a pulse back once, weak but real. When we rolled him into Mercy's ER, the monitors caught, showing a rhythm. He had color again. The wife was waiting just outside the curtain, whispering, "Please, just keep him alive." But 10 minutes later, his heart stopped for good. The ER doctor called it time of death, 12:23 a.m. We cleaned up, reset the gurney, and started the paperwork. Routine stuff. Then the monitor, the same one that had flatlined moments before, started beeping again. At first, we thought someone had bumped it. The waveform appeared, weak but steady, like a low hum. The nurse swore she'd unplugged it. We looked under the sheet. His chest wasn't moving, no pulse, nothing. Then the monitor's screen glitched, numbers scrambled, then flashed a message I'd never seen before. "Lead detected." Jenna leaned closer. "How? There are no leads connected." I don't know why, but I touched his wrist. It was ice cold. Not just cool, but wrong, like the air in a freezer. And the beeping quickened, sharp, urgent. The waveform climbed like a real heartbeat. That's when he exhaled. I felt it on my arm, a faint puff of air, even though his chest didn't move. Jenna backed away, whispering, "Dan, he's gone. Don't." The monitor blared, all alarms at once, and then everything went dark. Whole room. "Power outage," they said later, though the rest of the floor was fine. For maybe 5 seconds, there was nothing but the faint hiss of oxygen lines and the soft rattle of something metallic rolling on the floor. One of the electrodes, I think. When the power came back, the monitor rebooted, and the date displayed across the top. Except it wasn't that night's date. It showed April 17th, 2014. We checked his chart. That was the date of his first heart attack. No one could explain it. The biomed techs tested the monitor, the circuit, everything, all normal. They replaced it anyway. A week later, I ran into one of the ER nurses at a diner on my way home. She told me room 6, the same bay, had started acting up again. Empty bed, monitor on, steady heartbeat. She said it always happened around 12:23 a.m. I laughed it off, but that night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling I'd forgotten something in that room. Something small, something human. The next evening, I drove back to the hospital and parked near the ambulance bay. The ER windows glowed sterile white, the same way they always did. But in the one closest to the corner, room 6, I saw the faint green pulse of a heart monitor. It was steady, perfect rhythm. And in the reflection of that glass, I saw him, the man we'd lost, standing beside the bed, pale and still, his eyes fixed on the monitor. His mouth was moving, but no sound came out. I blinked, and the light went out. The next morning, I turned in my radio. Jenna left a few months later. Mercy shut down for good in 2021. Sometimes, when I'm driving past that block, I still glance toward where the ER used to be. The building's gone, but every now and then, only for a split second, I see that same green flicker in the dark, like the monitor never stopped beeping, and maybe it never will.